So last weekend, some people that I work with did something that made me really proud. They entered a triathlon. They were entered as a couple of corporate teams that I had organised, but they trained, they showed up, and then they crossed the finish line. And I watched them, and I was so happy to see them successfully complete this event. They're ordinary people with busy lives, definitely not professional athletes, and they proved to themselves more than anyone that they could do something hard, something they set their minds to. That feeling, that specific feeling of proving yourself right about what you're capable of, that's what I want to talk about today. Because I think a lot of us in our 50s have stopped giving ourselves the chance to feel it. Not because we can't, but because somewhere along the way, we started believing a story that said we shouldn't even try. Welcome to Unfiltered and Unbound. I'm Kate, and today we're tearing that myth apart. So let's call it what it is. It is a myth. And the myth is this, that by the time you're in your 50s, you're too old to try anything new. That starting something new is for younger people. That reinvention is brave and admirable as long as someone else is doing it. That if you haven't done the thing by now, you probably shouldn't bother. Sound familiar? This myth doesn't usually arrive as a loud declaration. It's way more insidious than that. It sounds like, at my age though, it sounds like, I'd love to, but I've left it too late. And it also sounds like, that's not really for someone like me. So what is this myth in plain language? That your 50s are a closing door. The time for bold moves, new directions, and big starts is behind you. What you haven't done yet, you probably won't, and that's just how it is. That's the myth, and it's everywhere. It's in the way we talk about age in the media. It's in how career conversations stop when a woman hits 50. It's in the jokes, the ones we laugh at, because not laughing feels worse. And here's the thing about myths. They don't need to be true to be powerful. They just need to go unchallenged long enough that we start mistaking them for fact. So today we're challenging it. Let's look at what's actually true. So let's chat about the science. And here's what the research actually tells us about the 50s brain and body. Finding number one, crystallized intelligence peaks in your 50s and 60s. So there are two types of intelligence. Fluid intelligence, which is your raw processing speed, your ability to learn brand new things quickly. That does peak earlier. But crystallized intelligence, the kind built from pattern recognition, judgment, experience, knowing what matters and what doesn't, that one, it peaks in your 50s and 60s. So in other words, you have never been smarter in the ways that actually count for most of what matters in life. Finding two, that neuroplasticity doesn't stop at 40. For a long time, the science suggested our brains were mostly fixed by early adulthood. We now know that's not true. The brain remains plastic, capable of forming new connections, building new pathways, and learning new skills throughout our entire lives. It may take longer and it may require more repetition, but the capacity is there. The triathlon team didn't know everything about triathlon when they signed up, but they learned. Their brains built new roads. Yours can too. And finding number three, purpose and meaning drive health outcomes. So research in positive psychology and longevity consistently show that a sense of purpose, feeling like you have something meaningful to do, a reason to show up, is one of the strongest predictors of physical and mental health in later life. It's not running marathons, it's not having the perfect diet, it's purpose, which means starting something, so a business, a creative project, a new skill, a second chapter, isn't just emotionally satisfying, it might literally be good for your health. So the science says you are at peak judgment. Your brain is still building, and having something to pursue is one of the best things you can do for your future self. So the biology is not the barrier. What is? So let me give you some real examples. The myth says this is rare, and the data says otherwise. Vera Wang didn't design her first wedding dress until she was 40. She's now one of the most recognisable names in fashion globally. Leah Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 49, and she went on to change the way an entire country thought about food. Joy Mangano, the inventor of the Miracle Mop, started her business in her 30s after a divorce with 3 kids and kept going until she built an empire. And these aren't anomalies. They're examples of what happens when women stop waiting for permission and start trusting their own timing. And they're just the famous ones, the ones that made it into the books. And even recent examples on the podcast, Joe Hurley started triathlon at 46. And I recently posed the question on my TikTok and Facebook pages asking for anyone who had tried something or started something new after the age of 50, and it was inundated with responses from a woman who took up dragon boat racing at 74, a woman who went skydiving for the first time ever at 60, for women who had taken up creative pursuits or educational pursuits after the age of 50. There are plenty of examples of women out there who you'll never read about and who quietly started doing things in their 40s, 60s, and 70s. A business, a study, a move, a creative practice, a new direction, and changed their lives. So starting something in your 50s isn't unusual, it's just underreported. And the women who do it rarely make the headlines, but they absolutely exist. And you probably know some of them. So the evidence is clear. The science support you. The examples exist, which brings me to the question I really want us to sit with today. If it's not biology and it's not evidence, what is actually stopping us? So it was never age. The real blocker is permission and also being scared to try something for fear of failure. So specifically, the belief that we need to have it, permission from someone else, from somewhere, before we're allowed to begin. So think about the messages most of us absorbed growing up. Be realistic. Don't get ahead of yourself. Who do you think you are? Wait your turn. Don't take up too much space. Don't make a fuss. And then we hit 50 and we wonder why starting something feels so terrifying. We weren't taught to launch anything. We were taught to maintain. We weren't encouraged to reinvent. We were encouraged to be grateful for what we had. And the women who broke those rules often paid a social price for it. So whose voice is it that tells you it's too late? And when did you start believing it? And more importantly, did you ever actually agree to? Because here's what I've come to believe. The too old myth isn't primarily a biological story. It's a permission story and a societal one. And the good news, the genuinely good news, is that permission is not something that you have to wait to receive. It's something you can decide to give yourself right now, today, without anyone else signing off on it. So here's the reframe I want to offer you. Your 50s are not a countdown, they are a launch pad. Think about what you actually have right now that you didn't at 25. You have clarity. You know what you value and what you don't, and you've done enough living to know what matters. You also have hard-won judgment. You've made mistakes and you've learned from them. That's not baggage, that's calibration. You have relationships, a network of people who know you, trust you, have seen what you're capable of. You have, and this one's pretty underrated, fewer fucks to give about what other people think. 25-year-olds are often paralysed by what other people will say about them. You've mostly stopped caring, and that is a superpower. Your 50s aren't a closing door. They're the first time in your life you have everything you need to actually do the thing. Clarity, experience, judgment, freedom. The question isn't whether you're too old. The question is, what the hell are you waiting for? Now, before I let you go, this is your unfiltered action for this week. I want you to think of one thing you've been telling yourself that you're too old to do. It's not a fantasy, not something impossible, something real. Something that lives in the back of your mind and surfaces occasionally and then gets quickly pushed away with, now that ship has sailed. I want you to write it down. And then I want you to ask yourself, whose voice is actually saying that? Because I bet it's not yours. You don't have to do the thing this week. You don't have to sign up for a triathlon or quit your job or launch a business. You just have to notice the story, name it, look at it clearly, because you can't write a story you haven't read. So I keep thinking about the triathlon team from work, right? Not the race itself, not the finish line. I keep thinking about the moment they signed up, the moment where you look at something that feels impossible and you say, okay, let's find out. Not because you know you'll be good at it, not because the timing is perfect, and not because anyone gave you permission, but because you decided you were someone who tries. That decision is available to you right now at exactly the age you are. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. I'm Kate, This is Unfiltered and Unbound. Go find out what you're made of.